Ma'am, you're live. Ma'am, we can't hear your microphone.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Can hear you.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ma'am.
I'm delighted to meet with everybody today. Let me introduce the other members of the leadership team who are joining us this afternoon. I would ask each one of them to kind of wave or give a nod of the head. Our Provost, Professor Prabhat Jela. Our Vice President for Human Resources, Mr. Curtis Powell.
Here.
Vice President for Finance and CFO, Barbara Howe. Secretary of the Institute and General Counsel, Craig Cook. Acting Vice President for Research and Director of the CMDIS, Professor Robert Hull. Information Services and Technology Vice President and CIO, John Kolb. Finance and CFO, Barbara Howe. Vice President for Institute Advancement, Greg Easton. Vice President for Strategic Communications and External Relations, Richie Hunter. I don't see Richie. Vice President for Enrollment Management, Mr. John Wexler. Vice President for Student Life, Peter Chinworski. Vice President for Administration, Mr. Claude Rounds. And Associate Vice President and Director of Athletics, Mr. Lee McElroy. Dean of the School of Engineering, Professor Shaker Garde. Dean of the School of Science, Dean Kurt Benneman. Dean of the School of Architecture, Dean Evan Douglas. Dean of the School of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences, Dr. Mary Simoni. Acting Dean of the Lally School of Management, Professor Chanika Ederasinga. Dean of Rensselaer at Hartford, Dr. Eric Krause.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Thank you. Vice Provost and Dean of Undergraduate Education, Dr. Keith Young.
Good afternoon.
Vice Provost and Dean of Graduate Education, Dr. Stan Dunn.
Hello, Dr. Jackson.
The head of the Center for Biotechnology and Interdisciplinary Studies, Professor Deepak Doshi.
Good afternoon, Dr.
Director of IDEA, Professor Jim Hindler.
Hello.
Director of the CISL, Dr. Kwei Su.
Hey, Dr. Jackson.
Executive Director of Impact, Professor Johannes Gerber.
Hello.
Special Advisor to the President on Strategic Initiatives, Professor Jonathan Dordick. Our Associate Vice President for Public Safety and Emergency Management, Mr. Vadim Thomas. I don't see Vadim. Our Executive Director for Wellness and the head of our Health Center, Dr. Leslie Lawrence. And our Assistant Vice President and Dean of Students, Mr. Travis Apgar.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. So 6 weeks ago, we made the decision to move instruction completely online, and we instituted remote working, except for critical on-campus functions in the face of the global COVID-19 pandemic. Now, I recognize that these are unprecedented times for our faculty, our staff, and our students, both personally and professionally. As a community, we did adapt, and we transformed our academic and administrative practices. Everyone has been working in a collaborative way. People have been forward-thinking, and they've been responsive. Now, we're not alone. Rensselaer, along with other universities across the country, has faced revenue shortfalls, and we continue to face extreme financial pressures. And as a direct result of this, we've had to undertake a number of difficult decisions to preserve our ability to carry out our teaching and research mission. Now, the context is this. Over the last 2 months, let's say 3 months, COVID-19 has really dramatically changed the world we live in. But it also has made clearer the value of a STEM-focused research university. And true to that, we have been proactive in providing leadership in doing research, in providing information, equipment, and practical solutions in key sectors related to the pandemic. And we've done this on a local, a regional, and a national basis. And so I'm very proud of how Rensselaer has responded. As I've done before, I want to thank all of our students and faculty for their perseverance, their adaptability, and their creativity in making what has been a very challenging semester a success. Now, they wouldn't have been able to do that without the great work of our staff. And from everything I've heard to date, the move to online courses went well. There are always some glitches, like my glitch in getting on here today. Now, I appreciate the adaptation and the creativity that everyone has taken in adopting new approaches to be able to provide a virtual hands-on experience, the one that would typically occur in our labs and design studios. And I've heard about the different schools and how they've creatively come up with solutions for that kind of work. And all of this took considerable effort to develop and to implement in a very short period of time. And so I am again grateful, and I've told the faculty this, to the faculty for their commitment in this regard, but also with the staff who supported that. Now, we have been directly engaged as a university in supporting those on the front line of the COVID-19 fight. As you know, we have developed face shields using both 3D printing and injection molding and have delivered hundreds already to the Albany Medical Center. But that work continues. We intend to ship some to one of the public hospitals in New York City. We also had students who were involved in the Forge, led by Russell Roberts, who got alums as well as other students who may have 3D printers to help print such masks, such face shields. But as well, led by Professor Bob Kolarchek, we developed a UVC sterilization system to sterilize face masks for those on the front lines at Mount Sinai in New York City. And we delivered that system back in April. And we developed it with lightning speed. We also, from the parents of a number of our international students whom we kept and housed here on the campus in the last several months, we received 10,000 surgical masks, which we then divided up. We sent 5,000 down to New York, to Mount Sinai, and we split the other 5,000 between St. Peter's, Health Partners, and Albany Med. But our faculty have been involved directly in other ways as well, and we have time a little later. I'm going to ask him to talk a little about it, but John Dordick's work has impacted directly protocols that Mount Sinai has developed to treat a disease that people truly are just now beginning to understand the unique characteristics of. And so the work that John has done together with Bob Linhart has been seminal in this regard. And of course, with our supercomputer center, AMOS, we've offered it up for work on the development of new vaccines for epidemiological studies and other things. And some of our faculty are involved directly. And so, you know, I want to thank all of them. I know Jim Hindler has been one involved, but Chris Carruthers and others, and John Cole has helped to make sure that does what it should do, and John Dordick has been involved as well. Now, let me have a short video that showcases some of what we have been doing here, you know, that give people a sense of some of our efforts. So if we could bring that up.
Rensselaer students in particular are very special in their talents, inventiveness, energy, and confidence in focusing on the hardest of problems.
Those photons are this paper looks at.
So cool. Yeah.
Clearly, COVID-19 is one of the hardest of problems.
This is to relieve a lot of the uncertainty that is around in developing policy.
Our students and faculty have helped to fashion progress with therapeutic intervention, with disinfecting of personal protective equipment.
We all wanted to, do something to make a difference.
And providing face shields for those on the front lines of the pandemic.
It's all simple engineering principles, but it's gonna save lives.
I guess it's part of the mentality of being a maker. It's not just fun to do it, you're doing it because there may be a need.
You may be familiar with our informal motto, why not change the world? It is a challenge and a call to action for members of the Rensselaer community, and ones that our students, faculty, alumni, and alumnae have embraced wholeheartedly.
Now, you know, while that might have been developed kind of on the fly, as we would say, I think it does showcase some of what we've been doing. But let me talk a little more directly about some of the things that I know are on people's minds. You know, the pandemic and the accompanying global economic downturn has created significant financial challenges for Rensselaer. And the cost of this crisis to the university are substantial, and we do expect to see ramifications from this pandemic for some time. It places intense pressure on all of our major functions and on our associated revenue streams. Now, I've not really talked about this so directly before, but we anticipate revenue losses related to the pandemic that could likely reach $60 million or more, spanning this fiscal year and the next. And these include losses due to the closure of the residential commons and our dining facilities, the costs associated with the transition to remote learning platforms, an impact on philanthropy as people think about what they can and want to do, as well as additional costs to ensure the health and safety of our faculty, staff, and students. Now, the pandemic has introduced significant uncertainty in our enrollment planning, even though so far for the confirms for the freshman class, we're doing a little better than we had hoped, but there are a lot of uncertainties. And so projected declines in enrollment are included in the estimated revenue shortfall. Now, some weeks ago, I shared several measures that we already have implemented to preserve the ability of the Institute to weather this crisis. And they included, a reduction of the salaries of our most senior leaders, the reduction of discretionary expenses, suspension of faculty and staff hiring, suspension of faculty and staff annual merit increases, some steps we took to suspend reclassification, promotion for staff, and we've actually suspended faculty and staff pay equity adjustments. We've suspended sabbatical leaves for faculty, and we've reduced the number of fixed-term employees, and we had to furlough quite a number of our staff through July 31st, and it may go longer. Now, each of these steps and that we've, have taken are helping us to address the FY 2020 financial impact of COVID-19, as well as helping to position the Institute to weather the expected financial challenges of FY 21 and beyond. But I have to be straightforward and say that additional difficult steps may be necessary to ensure that we have the ability to cover anticipated revenue losses as well as anticipated extraordinary expenses. With that in mind, though, we still are carrying forward with our academic programs and with our academic calendar. And as we've announced previously, we will be offering the full Arch summer curriculum for our rising juniors, those who are transitioning from being sophomores to juniors, as well as other planned summer courses. A number of our students have not quite yet gotten the Arch away opportunities that they ideally have had by now or would like to have, but their work in developing robust Arch away opportunities is continuing apace. Now, as we look forward to this coming fall 2020 and beyond, a lot remains unknown, including the severity and the duration of the health emergency and the attendant economic disruption. And that is even as some places are beginning to open. But what we're able to do depends on the response and guidance of the state government as well as the federal government. But nonetheless, we will ensure that the high quality teaching and research that Rensselaer is known for will continue through this pandemic and beyond. And so in this vein, we have been moving forward with planning for renewed campus operations at the appropriate time, and the associated in-person teaching and learning. But it's important to keep in mind that in all we do, the health and safety of our students and our complete Rensselaer community remain paramount. So as we plan, our focus must be and is on lessening risks and mitigating consequences as we look to manage in an environment with a pandemic disease for which there is no vaccine at this time, nor a total treatment. So the leadership team has been actively working and preparing across multiple scenarios to safely return to the right balance of in-person operations as we adapt those operations to deliver the best possible education, to perform world-class research, and ensure financial stability. And we will lay out our detailed plans at the appropriate time and as expeditiously as we can. But again, we're operating against a global pandemic where there is no vaccine at this time, and there is no overarching treatment or cure. So as you think about what we're doing and as we're doing it, and when we bring it forward, as you review the plan that we develop, remember that each individual must assess his or her own risks with respect to his or her ability and or comfort with being on the campus. But each individual also must understand, and this is across our students, our faculty, and staff, that returning to and being on the campus will require a high degree of personal responsibility and vigilant compliance. We can operate with no less. But to determine the best path forward, I have established a startup task force chaired by our provost, Professor Prabhat Hajela, and our Vice President for Human Resources, Mr. Curtis Powell. This task force will develop recommendations for fully reactivating the university in a phased way with a particular focus on health and safety, on pedagogical innovation, and operational effectiveness. Other members of that task force include Barbara Howe, our CFO and Vice President for Finance, Richie Hunter, Vice President for Strategic Communications and External Relations, Claude Rounds, Vice President for Administration, Peter Konworski, Vice President for Student Life, Dr. Les Lawrence, John Kolb, the VP and Chief Information Officer, Professor John Dordick, and Mr. Lee McElroy, our Director of Athletics. Now, but others are involved. The task force, the startup task force, is comprised of 5 work groups, one being on protocol development and what we call right now TQSQ, for testing, tracking, tracing, surveillance, and quarantine. Meaning we have to have an ability to test, and we're working to retain that ability or develop that ability here. Tracking is very important, and we're looking at tracking and tracing, how we would do contact tracing, as well as being able to have epidemiological models that our faculty are helping us with to track the spread of the virus, both on the campus but in the area, and having the right surveillance or sentinel techniques to be able to spot when there are trends or hotspots. And of course, the ability to quarantine if necessary. A second work group is focused on teaching and learning and everything that has to do with that, including how we handle classrooms, the structure of courses, whether we're in a hybrid mode where some is online and some is in person, etc. A third work group is focused on campus life. What does that mean? Obviously, if we started this fall, we cannot just do business as usual, and nor would we be able to do business as usual through the whole academic year. And because, again, our focus is on lessening risks and mitigating consequences. We have a work group focused on research and graduate education as well, and a 5th work group that is doing financial modeling and providing overall guidance in that arena. And so as we develop and refine the planning and the resultant recommendations and decisions, we will, of course, share our path forward with the full Rensselaer community. As we do this work, we are also focused on a more fundamental transformation of the university to ensure that it remains the vital institution it always has been, well beyond today. And to that end, I also have set up a transformation task force whose job it is to look at more radical change in how we do our business. And there's an oversight group I've created that I myself will chair, but it includes Mr. Powell, our HR VP, the provost, Professor Prabhat Hajela, and of course our Vice President for Finance and CFO, Barbara Howe. Now, once we establish this group will be made up of a number of people at the dean, the assistant and associate vice presidential levels, primarily from the administration, finance, human resources, student life, the provost office, and the research division. And as we look, we hope to engage all of you as we go forward with this. And as we move forward, our fundamental academic and research mission remain paramount. We intend, with your support, to ensure that Rensselaer remains a place where students are excited to learn, where faculty and staff are fulfilled in their work, and where our outreach to our community makes a difference every day in the capital region, in our nation, and around the globe. If there's one thing this pandemic has taught us, it has taught us that we are connected to everyone else in the region, that we are connected in the state, in the country, and around the globe. And we're about to graduate the class of 2020, and it is going to be a uniquely known class, having graduated in this pandemic, and it will both face unique challenges, but I think great opportunity to make the world a better place. And so I want to recognize our 2020 graduating class, and I offer my most sincere congratulations to all of you and to each of you. And my congratulations extend as well to your parents, your guardians, your families, and friends. They share in satisfaction in your achievement, and you wouldn't be where you are without them. I likewise congratulate and thank the faculty and staff who gave you knowledge and support, walking beside you on the road to this moment of your graduation. It is a proud moment for them as well. Now, I know that for our graduates, the ceremony we intend to hold virtually next weekend will encompass a multiplicity of emotions. Pride and satisfaction, of course, optimism and anticipation, promise and potential hopes, dreams, plans, but perhaps some sadness as well. But I urge you to appreciate this moment in all of its fullness and beauty, and to cherish it and remember it always, because you did earn it. And so we look forward to celebrating your achievements next week. And when the public health situation allows it, we do want to come together to recognize you for all that you have accomplished. And so now we will turn to the Q&A portion of the meeting. I want to thank you for submitting questions in advance. There are quite a few of them. And so as required, I will turn to different members of the leadership team to address the different questions. And so let me begin. So, of course, a lot surrounds precisely what we will do in the fall semester. Are we opening or not? What in fact will we expect that we will be doing? And again, I just want to say that what we do will depend upon what the public health situation allows us to do. We have to depend upon guidance from the state as well, and what we're allowed to do in that regard. The state is opening regions according to their meeting certain pretty stringent criteria. And then within the within that framework, there are industries that are allowed to open by phases. At this point, education, and that includes higher education, is in phase 4, although there is a task force that has been working with KIQ or KQ, the Council of Independent Colleges and Universities, to put together a plan and a way forward. And that's even as we work on our specific plans. And they are also putting forward to the governor what support the higher education sector needs. As well, we have been in contact with our congressional representatives, both in the House of Representatives and the Senate, to talk with them about the needs of the higher education sector. And so as we look to talk about what could happen in the fall, more specifically, I'm going to begin with asking Les Lawrence, Dr. Lawrence, to share some thoughts, early thoughts with you.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. We received a lot of questions about how we could make it safe this fall for people to come back. And what is our plan to try to, as much as we can, ensure the health and safety of our faculty, staff, and students. So we had the outlines of a plan which we would put in place should the governor allow us to return. You heard Dr. Jackson reference the core of our plan, which is the T-SQ. First, on the way back into campus, all students, faculty, and staff would be tested for COVID-19. We need to know right up front if anybody's bringing it back to campus, who has it, and that allows us to isolate any illness that could be coming back to the campus so we don't have a quick spread right here on campus. We will be distributing to everyone, faculty, staff, and students, a number of cloth face masks that will be worn at all times when you're outside of your room. Also, when you go into classes, there will be surgical face masks for everyone to put on because they don't wet through like the cloth masks can. There will be cleaning products provided when you enter common rooms like a classroom that you should use to clean your space in between classes. Of course, we will be increasing the amount of cleaning we do as well. And then everyone will participate in our T-SQ protocol. Testing, everyone's going to get tested on the way back in. And this gives us a little extra time to do faculty and staff who are here over the summer. So we will start with faculty and staff first as far as testing for COVID-19. Then as the students are brought back, all students will be tested for COVID-19 in an orderly fashion, which we will reveal later as we make our further plans. Once everyone is tested, then they'll be put into a program where they're going to be continually tested every 2 weeks. This will go on throughout our semester so we can keep track of where any positives are. Tracing is if we do find a positive, we're going to want to know everybody that individual has come into contact with. We're going to want to know every place that person has visited, possibly in the last 14 days. So we can follow up with all the contacts and ask them to quarantine. Again, this is just out of an abundance of caution. We want to make sure we're always keeping track of where any possible COVID could be. We will be repurposing 3 of our already current employees, so we won't be spending any more money to become full-time tracers. And they'll be in charge of not only tracing, but also making sure samples are collected every 2 weeks. And they will be in contact with any student, staff, or faculty if they don't come in time for their tests. Tracking, as Dr. Jackson mentioned, we'll be aggregating data. We'll be, if there's, for instance, a hot spot on campus where we've seen 3 positive COVID infections come from, we'll try to figure out what's going on in that area and eliminate it. Surveillance. I didn't mention this earlier, but everyone is going to be required to participate in this. We can't do it alone. You can't expect Dr. Lawrence to sit in health services and be able to keep everyone safe. That's not possible. We need everyone to work together, just like everyone has in New York State, to keep control of the disease. So people will be required as part of surveillance to check in every morning on a app and tell us if they're having any symptoms. Anybody who checks in with positive, saying that they have any of those symptoms, will be contacted. If you're a student, you'll be asked to follow up with student health. If you're a faculty member, you may be asked to follow up either with an occupational doctor or with your own physician if you develop any of those symptoms. So we will also, as part of surveillance, continue to monitor all areas of this country and all countries as far as the current COVID community circulation, the circulation of the virus, so we know whether we can continue to operate here or whether we should expect any difficulties. And then the Q in the TQ, SQ is quarantine and isolation. That's been a hallmark of how we've controlled this illness. It will be no different here at Rensselaer. If we do find any positives, if anybody comes back with a positive with COVID, or if anybody develops COVID, they will be asked to isolate. We have isolation rooms set aside here for students on our campus. If you are staff or faculty, you'll be asked to isolate in your home, of course, with follow-up with your doctor and your county health department. And then, of course, when the tracers track down all of the contacts of that positive, they'll be asked to quarantine for 14 days. Many of the questions that were sent in were about, well, what if I am one of the people with COVID? What if I have it? Will I be allowed time to make up my work? We're going to have, as far as I understand, we're going to have a lot of our academics online, so we're going to keep up with your work. And if, the only reason I want to address it is if you do fall behind, if you're too ill, remember, we can give you extra time to make up your work. We even have disability services available, which we've used for temporary illnesses in the past, which you can access to help you stay caught up. I could go on for another hour, but I won't because there's lots of questions to answer. I do want to mention just one last thing. I've heard plenty of people ask, why are you still charging a health fee when there's not as many students on campus? And I want to say that actually, since COVID has occurred, our expenses have increased. They haven't decreased, as you might imagine, and I can understand why people would think that. But in order to do testing this fall, we had to purchase materials and machines that will allow us to do the testing. We also have brought on a happy note, we just brought this past Monday, May 11th, our new full-time psychiatrist, Dr. Anita Chu, who will be meeting at a later meeting as people deal with the stress of this current COVID situation. And I'll stop there. I apologize for rambling so much.
Thank you. So let me turn to Curtis Powell for a few comments on campus in the fall.
Yeah, Dr. Jackson, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. One of the things that we're looking at, and that Dr. Lawrence went into detail about the medical process that we will follow. But, our working, living, and learning environments are massive, and we will strive to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of members of this community. In order to do so, some of the things that the task force has put together, and all of this is continued upon the guidance that we get from the state, the governor, basically. And so we want to be able to adjust our work hours and shift designs as we try and strive to reduce density of our faculty, staff, students, and visitors on this campus. We want to enact social distancing protocols in all of our common areas, such as our academic classrooms, our labs, our research labs, and also we want to educate all community members regarding personal protective equipment, as well as we want to implement strict cleaning and sanitation standards across the campus. And in doing that, we want to be able to enact continuous screening protocols that Dr. Lawrence has spelled out. But I think one of the key takeaways that he mentioned is that this will be a community effort, and we expect all members of the community to adhere to some of the standards and protocols we will establish. Now, keep in mind, we do have an essential workforce on campus today, and many of these protocols and practices, we're working with those essential staff on. And so we feel pretty confident that we can ensure and strengthen the protocols. And if we do get the go-ahead to open the campus from the governor, we'll be in a very good step in order to do that.
Let's ask Curtis and Les Lawrence and Peter and Claude Rounds to all stay visible for this portion. So, Claude, let me hear from you in terms of any comments you want to add.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. I just want to reinforce what both Dr. Lawrence and Curtis has indicated, because it's really basic and important to our risk-based campus planning scenarios. They all include reduced density in the resident halls, academic and research spaces, student activity venues. They all incorporate social distances, as Curtis has indicated, increased cleaning and disinfecting procedures, the health center protocols and testing, and very important to this return to campus plan is the fact that we do have a contingency plan for isolation and quarantine using vacant and available university resident hall beds to be used in the case of an outbreak. All this, as Dr. Jackson indicated, is designed to meet the New York State requirements for a safe return to campus. And once we are confident that we meet the New York State requirements, we will consult with the board and then make an announcement on the fall semester. After that announcement, we will promptly proceed with more detailed information, program information, including things like the housing application process.
Say a few words about housing and Greek life. Peter?
Yeah, Dr. Jackson, thank you for giving this opportunity to talk. And as my colleagues have said, this will be a very different fall. But I want to reiterate many of the things you already heard. And it really starts with a commitment to keeping our community safe. We were very fortunate over the last 2 months. While we still had students on campus, we had good compliance and we had good cooperation, and we'll continue to need that as we work as a community to make sure everyone keeps safe and is socially distant. And as Claude just said, our models will continue to be developed, but things will be different, and there will be different protocols as we think about, reduced density and housing and in dining and in transportation. Our goal is to still maintain our class-based model and to support our students in the first year, support our sophomore students, obviously support our students going into the arch and as they plan for their away semester, as well as the work that we'll be doing with our senior class to make sure that they have a successful senior year. So we're committed to the success of all of our students using our class-based model. Couple of things that we will, in addition, you heard Dr. Lawrence talk about, the importance of training and education are going to be paramount, and we'll spend a lot of time throughout the summer and early fall as we reorient people. Everyone will go through education and orientation on things like our protocols and use of PPE, but there'll also be a heavy focus on compliance. And so we all need to continue to focus on, if we come back, what will that look like? And how will I personally participate, each of us individually, students, staff, and faculty? And I want to compliment everyone for the work thus far, keeping our campus community safe, but that will only need to continue as we bring back students on campus, as we think about what the fall looks like. So that compliance is critical. And we'll be spending a lot of time communicating to students, parents, and our community members. With regard to Greek life, I want to say, you know, we have a long history and a deep commitment to Greek life. And I want to, you know, I know Dean Apgar is on this call and Dean Lawler. They're right now our main contacts with the Greek community. They've been working closely with the Greek councils, the Greek chapters, and the alumni Greek leadership. In fact, they met earlier today, and they've continued to develop plans and protocols that we'll think about what that will be like. But like any event, whether it's athletics or the way we go in and out of the classrooms or student organizations or clubs or Greek life, things will be very different in a socially distant environment. So we can all plan for a different type of environment, and it is an uncertain time, and there's going to need to be a great deal of collaboration and communication as we continue to think about what that looks like. Again, this is a moment where we have to think about, you know, being consistent in our approach, you know, working as a system, you know, and basically as we develop these plans, we'll continue to communicate. But we are continuing to make progress on the support of the Greek community, and there were questions asked about Greek life and the implementation, and all of that work continues. And I compliment all of our Greek leaders as well as the Institute leadership for continuing to frame that conversation, continuing to focus on important elements of education around risk, around alcohol and drugs, alcohol and hazing prevention, Title IX prevention, you know, our focus on, you know, our live-in residential staff, our new policies around our five-star program, which we're reevaluating, our relationship statement, all the things that we're evaluating for the future of a sustained and successful Greek community. But that requires continued partnership and you know, good collaboration. And I continue to, you know, stress that we're going to continue to work together, but it requires all of us to just think in different ways as we focus on our health and safety and we think about the future of our community, you know, living and learning together.
Well, I want to reinforce something, which is, since our fundamental focus is on carrying out our educational and research mission by lessening risk and mitigating consequence, no one should think that returning to the campus means returning to business as usual. And that includes everything from how we teach, to how people work administratively, to how offices are staffed, to what the housing arrangements are, to how clubs would operate, and what would happen to our athletic program. So when we talk about a return to campus, please do not think that means return to the status quo, because it does not. And so we will be sharing more with you as we fully flesh out the plans. And again, they are shaped by what the requirements are around us. And whatever we do has to go to the Board of Trustees as well. But it will not be business as usual in any way. And so I know there are many people who have particular things that they especially are interested in. But if you return thinking you will go back to the status quo ante, that is unrealistic at this time. We want to get back to quote unquote the normal as quickly as we can. But realistically, if we are able to open in the fall, it will not look like how things were before you left in the spring. So I want to be straightforward with everyone about that. So thank you all.
Thank you.
There has been concern, of course, about the finances of the university, its financial health, the endowment, the fundraising, as well as refunds, tuition and fees, and the CARES Act. So I'm going to ask Barbara Howe, our Vice President for Finance and CFO, to lead us off, and then I'm going to ask Greg Easton to weigh in as well. Barbara?
Sure, thank you, and thank you everybody for joining this afternoon. You know, we understand your concern about the financial health of the Institute and want to assure you that we are taking what we believe are the appropriate actions to ensure that health of the Institute. You know, Dr. Jackson mentioned the revenue shortfalls that we are projecting, and we believe we're taking the appropriate level of cost controls and associated actions to ensure that we can adjust to those potential shortfalls in this right amount of time. We believe these are sufficient at this time, but we continue to evaluate everything and adjust our projections as we need to. We have done a lot of work over the last several years to improve the financial condition of the Institute, and we are committed to maintaining that. We have not taken on any additional debt, nor do we have any plans to take on any additional long-term debt. Questions have been raised about whether or not we would take an additional draw from our endowment. This is part of our planning and analysis, and we continue to look at all of our options should we need additional measures to meet the budget shortfalls or the revenue shortfalls. Something like a supplemental endowment draw, this would require consultation with and approval of the board of directors, and we will move down that path if we believe it's necessary. The endowment, though, as everyone has seen in the market, is subject to market volatility, and we have not been excluded from that. So we look very carefully at the endowment models and preserving our endowment. So I think so that is what we focus on and how we are looking to address any potential shortfalls. This is, an ongoing effort, and will continue, as we enter into the summer and see how how the fall shapes up. We also have received questions with regard to room and board credits and how we addressed those. The refunds that we issued via credits to the accounts reflect the proportionate share of the costs that is borne by both the Institute and our students. And, they reflect the fact that there's a balance and between the funding between students and the Institute. Further, we also received some questions on whether there was going to be a reduction in tuition. There are no plans at this point in time to reduce tuition. We continue to deliver a Rensselaer quality education, and and have pivoted not only to remote instruction, but are looking forward to providing a blended level of instruction as we implement the social distancing and other changes that are necessary to bring everybody back to campus. So those changes, actually result in increased costs for us, and so the reduction in tuition is not a consideration at this time. Lastly, people have asked about the CARES Act and the funding that is available under the CARES Act. Rensselaer has applied and been granted the student emergency aid. We are finalizing the allocation of the aid to our students with the highest need, and we'll be communicating that in the near future. While we have not yet, we do intend to apply for the institutional portion of the CARES Act funding. That funding will assist us in offsetting the costs of the transition to remote learning, as well as the cost of bringing everybody back to campus in a safe manner. These are all efforts that are all ongoing, and really have a financial impact on the Institute. And so those funds will assist us in making those necessary changes.
Thank you, Barbara. Greg, you want to say?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Jackson. And I want to thank everyone out there today for joining, and also for the many of you that are supporting this campaign. We continue to move forward in the campaign, and more than 30,000 individuals have helped make this campaign go to where it is to date. We've had continual conversations with all of our continual donors and those that are considering gifts to the institution. There's been a lot of positive conversations that we've been having, particularly how we've been working with COVID-19 and what the campus has been doing and how we've been involved. But we've had very good conversations. We expect the campaign to move along, and we do, we'll update you as we continue to go, but we're having great conversations with our donors and prospective donors. So thank you so much, Dr. Jackson, for giving me a moment to update.
So, John Wexler, perhaps you can talk some about enrollment, or what it looks like, and there have been a number of questions about financial aid.
Yes, Dr. Jackson, thank you, and afternoon, everyone. Right now, for the undergraduate confirms year to date, we are down 4%. So we have 1,667 confirms that have come in. One of the things, this is a totally different year, obviously, than we've had in years past on the admission side. Many students have asked for extensions to be able to have a little more time to review their financial aid and get their packet, to get their deposit in, and we've granted that. One of the dates was today, and some students have asked all the way to June 1st. One of the areas that we're continuing to navigate and look at is our international student population, their ability to get their I-20s and to get their visas to be able to get here for the fall. Just so you know, if students aren't able to get here in the fall, we are able to teach them remotely online. So if students internationally do choose to start online in the fall, they do and they will have that opportunity. In regards to financial aid, we continue to take in appeals from students, current students, that have had change of circumstances due to COVID-19. If you haven't been able to, I want to provide the email address that someone personally reviews every day and goes to a committee for which we review on the financial aid. It's FINAID, FINAID, at rpi.edu. I encourage you to let us know if there's been a change of financial circumstance in your household. We continue to review that. We've allocated more financial aid over the summer based on that than we ever have in years past. And we continue to review that. We're very conscious of what's going on in the world and the impact financially that this is having to our students. And I encourage you to reach out to us if there's any issues such as that surrounding. One other thing I'd like to touch on, there were some questions about the co-term. As many of you know out there, we extended the deadline for the co-term. We have 120 students who have applied for the co-term. And those of you that are approved for that, that funding will be dealt with as it has in the past, which means if you are getting RPI funding at the undergrad side, that funding will carry with you so that you're able to continue on and do the co-term for 1 year in any program that you select. So I just want to make everyone aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So, Curtis, there have been a number of questions about the furloughs and layoffs, about work schedules, and about benefits, and where we're going with respect to those.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jackson. You know, these difficult times require difficult decisions. And like other universities in the U.S., 70 to 75% of our operating budget is attributed to employee salaries. Now, as a result, you've already shared with members on this presentation about actions that we've taken, such as suspending hiring, suspending our merit increases, promotions, faculty sabbaticals, as well as we have furloughed some staff. Now, let me take a minute just to talk about the staff that were furloughed. They're critical to what we do here. Furlough means that they've been temporarily suspended from work here, but we intend on, if things turn around, we'd like to bring them back. Now, in that regard, these furloughed staff, we have preserved their benefits. And many were kept financially whole as a result of the New York State unemployment benefits and the federal CARES Act weekly supplement that they are receiving. Now, in addition to that, for all of our workers, we have strengthened our benefits program to include telemedicine protocols. Now, these protocols include doctor on demand, ER anywhere, prescription delivery services, and we partner with our benefits providers to provide education to not only our furloughed staff, but the current staff that we have in place. And these vendors provided education on stay at home because many individuals are working remotely. Also, the vendors, many of our pension vendors have created a series of webinars to educate our faculty and staff regarding the market volatility that all of us are seeing, and also to continue looking at their own portfolio, because it's important that people make the necessary adjustments. And so we make sure that we have those counseling protocols in place. Now, if the governor decides that we would reopen, again, we will look at specifically how we would stagger both faculty and staff returning to campus. And this will be a critical process. And this is what the task force and all of us are working through as we consider the various options that are available. So thank you for having the opportunity to speak to the group.
Thank you, Curtis. So, Mr. Provost, Dr. Hajela, a number of questions have come up having to do with, different faculty issues with online classes and quality of instruction with the graduate TAs, as well as the ARCH. And so I'd ask you to speak to these. And then I would also ask Peter to further amplify with respect to the ARCH.
Yes. So thank you, Dr. Jackson. The questions that I looked at that were related to faculty mostly dealt with the furlough and the furlough schedule for the contingent faculty. And at the very outset, I'd just like to say that we deeply value the contributions of all of our faculty members, including those in the contingent ranks. We have to manage the expenses related to the instructional enterprise because of everything that you have described, but we want to do it in a way that preserves the integrity of our academic programs and ensures that we're able to deliver that high quality rental education. So as we seek to create this financial balance, we have done a very detailed analysis and examination of all of our academic offerings, and any reductions in faculty strength that we are looking at are being done in consultation with the academic leadership in the schools and predicated also on projected student enrollments and how they evolve for the fall semester. There have been several questions raised on the merits of remote instruction and online teaching, as they call it. In the spring semester, we had to pivot to remote instruction so that the academic progression for our students would not be adversely affected and impacted. We have been largely successful in that pivot, as is evidenced by the large number of correspondences and emails that I have received from parents and students about what we have done in that regard. I am really proud of our faculty members, Dr. Jackson, and just like you said, it has been remarkable at the way they have adapted and shown flexibility, that the more experienced faculty members who were used to working online have actually jumped to the rescue of those who had not used those techniques before and have really brought them along in ways that were hard to have imagined when we went to this mode. Innovative ways to provide experiential content were developed, and I'm hearing back from some of the faculty that some of those tools that they have now learned to use and have experienced in deploying in their classes, they are likely to retain those even as we come back to in-person instruction. I'll just add that remote or digital instruction has transcended the period of 50-minute canned tapes. New tools have developed that actually allow us to develop a connected virtual environment that has a myriad of advantages. And as an individual, I would never shy away from the in-person on-campus experience, but I think what we have been able to accomplish with these tools is really remarkable. And I congratulate the faculty as well as the students who have adapted to this new move for education. Now, many students have raised questions of why this should be cheaper, and I simply tell them that it's the same education that they are getting from the same world-class faculty, distinguished faculty that we have. Many of these faculty have actually had to work harder to make sure that the education remains solid and equitable. They've had to do multiple exams, for example, to account for different time zones. Professors have conducted virtual chat sessions at different time zones to accommodate remote students. And we have looked at new tools, new technology tools to provide this experiential education in innovative ways. I think this will continue to evolve. We have a great deal of experience on our Hartford campus, and that experience is coming to bear on our campus as well, along with the teaching and learning collaboratory that consists of really accomplished faculty members who are assisting others and exposing them to new tools that they may not have thought about before. There are other questions that need to be talked about. I think in particular there were some questions from graduate students about support for graduate students. And what I would offer to them is that we are committed to supporting all of our current graduate students that we have and have looked and have actually been successful at identifying alternative means to support them from internal funds. I thank the faculty who have risen to the occasion to help us in that endeavor as well. Now, given the financial constraints, we may not be able to have the same large cohort of graduate students in the fall semester that we typically do, but it should not impact our current students. And that's the message that I want to relay to our graduate students in this regard. I think there was a more direct question from the faculty about tenure clock extension. And I think this was a message that we had actually passed back to them in a memo to the deans and department heads, that there was going to be an automatic tenure clock extension. This is articulated in the faculty handbook, and we are simply following the process. People may be confused as to whether they have to ask for it. It's a simple note that comes from the dean's office so that the paperwork is processed and it goes into the record that they are now on a tenure clock extension. With regards to the arch, I think it's a this is the questions that have been raised about the arch are typically, why don't you cancel the arch or to make it optional? And to that, I would simply say that arch is really now part of our curriculum. It is part of our academic calendar. It is something that has the support and has been approved by our board of trustees. We believe that it is predicated really on the many intentional goals that we identified for our graduates. We deeply appreciate the fact that it was designed to provide a more robust pre-professional experience for our students. It has already shown that those expectations have been met. This past year, the number of students who went away on internships and co-ops was almost 500, which coupled with the number of students who go on co-ops typically has almost tripled the number of students who have had these experiences, and we just expect this number will grow. Another 100 or so went out on research experiences at our universities. Many students chose to go abroad, to study abroad, and it really signals for us that we are getting to the point where we want a global outlook for our students to develop, and this has really helped in that regard as well. Many students chose to do independent learning and were engaged in civic responsibilities and civic service experiences, and many pursued entrepreneurial activities as well. So this is a program that is here to stay. We are well geared and prepared to launch it this summer and are prepared to do so. Peter can also talk a little bit about the student life experience that goes along as part of the ARC experience. So I'll turn to Peter.
Yeah, thank you for that. And thank you, Dr. Jackson. I just want to reiterate that intentionality. You know, our goal is to prepare every student and accelerate them into their junior year. And that will start for our students in only about 10 days. And we're excited to have them in the program and prepare them. Their orientation will start on Monday. It will go live. We'll begin their tethering with the launch of the guidebook application next week. And we'll continue to support them throughout the summer. And we talked about those intentionalities. There are several main ways, and I'll use the one that Prabhat ended with. The career and experiential learning piece is a core part of the Arch, because the Arch Away is something we want to make sure everybody has a meaningful Arch Away opportunity that they've selected or designed. And so in the spirit of that, I will say, you know, one of our lead units to do that work is the Center for Career and Professional Development. You know, the CCPD's principal role is helping people at every stage of their career search. And so we're obviously supporting our seniors who are about to graduate, but we're supporting our Arch, you know, our rising Arch juniors as they head into the Arch summer semester. I do want to say, you know, we're excited to say that we'll have a launch of a new online portal this summer. And we'll be teaching students how to use that. It will continue, and students love it across the country. It's called Handshake, and students love using it. It's a very mobile-friendly tool, but it will allow us to continue to engage our employer partners in even more robust ways than ever before. And we've seen incredible innovation in our employer partners. And so for our students seeking internships or co-ops or experiential learning and civic engagement opportunities, that robust list will continue to grow. And our team is actively working with employer partners, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 startups across the country and around the globe. And I think what we're seeing is incredible innovation in those industries. And so while everyone is facing the challenges of COVID-19, you're also seeing this incredible shift and, you know, just a prolific effort by organizations to, you know, go online, make things virtual, but also keep their employees and our future interns or co-op students safe. So that innovation is continuing. We'll continue to focus on that. And that's a focus of the CCPD staff, and all of us are committed to that. Likewise, we're committed to things like building and tethering the community. And I want to compliment our class of 2022 leadership, the students in the class who worked with us to develop programming, and they'll continue to do that throughout the summer as they connect and engage with their peers in a virtual environment. As Dr. Lawrence said, you know, health and well-being is a prime focus area. We want to make sure students feel health and well-being support. And it's a little more difficult in a virtual environment, but we have many programs that have gone online. And as he said, virtual counseling, virtual telemedicine, those are all available now. And lastly, I want to mention, when we round this out, the conversation about academic support. All of those available academic support resources are available in a virtual environment, whether it's tutoring, advising, reaching out to your class dean. All of those services are available. They'll be available throughout the summer. They'll be available as we, you know, propel students into the Arch. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and we're really proud of the work that's going on, and proud of the students who have embraced and are preparing to enter the Arch. And we look forward to welcoming you officially right after commencement weekend.
Thank you very much. There have been a number of questions that have come up as well about research and our research operations. Robert Hull, would you say a few words about that as well?
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Jackson, and good afternoon, everybody. The questions about the research enterprise have broadly fallen into two categories. The first is regarding to on-campus research. How and when will that restart? And the second is about our ongoing activities in COVID-19 focused research. So first of all, with regard to on-campus research, I do just want to emphasize that we do have a large amount of excellent ongoing research in our community in areas such as data analytics, artificial intelligence, cognitive sciences. So there's a lot of outstanding research continuing. But in respect to returning to laboratory-based research on campus, there are plans for a phased return with the most critical and urgent research activities being emphasized in the earlier phases. Those plans will be predicated on safety, on substantial social distancing, on establishing shifts of work to realize that, to using the tracking and tracing protocols we're developing, on full use of personal protective equipment, and on cleaning protocols and on sanitization. And the overall goal as we re-establish the research enterprise on campus, that people working in the laboratories will be as safe in the labs as they would be in their daily life, or safer. The timing, as Dr. Jackson and others have indicated, will be driven by the epidemiology of the virus, by the guidance and requirements of the New York State, and by our wish to, within the university, to reestablish the on-campus presence safely and in a coordinated fashion. So with respect to ongoing COVID-19 research, Dr. Jackson has summarized some of this. AMOS, our supercomputer, one of the 25 most powerful supercomputers on the planet, has been purposed largely on COVID-19 research through the COVID-19 High Performance Research Consortium, High Performance Computing Research Consortium. Two major projects already running. One is on computational research, is on drug databases to address different aspects of therapeutics of the COVID virus. The second is a nationwide methodology of allocating resources, such as ventilators. We've heard about the outstanding work done on epidemiological modeling, both of relevance to our local region, to the nation, and to our plans here on campus, largely being done in the Institute of Data Exploration and Analytics on campus. There is a great deal of work for remote and collaborative studies within our Center for Biotechnology and Interdisciplinary Studies, including the potential, the groundbreaking work and potentially transformative work being done by Professors Dordick and Linhart using heparin as a potential therapeutic agent. And we also, Dr. Jackson talked about some very significant work we've been doing with regards to supplying our healthcare partners with personal protective equipment. This work will expand as we bring research onto campus, and will be at the forefront of the earliest activities as we do develop those plans, do develop those activities and those timelines. So I'll finish there, Dr. Jackson. Thank you for the chance to respond to those questions.
Well, thank you very much. There have been questions raised about the peace officer status and legislation relative to certain public safety officers. Vadim, you want to speak to that?
Thank you, Dr. Jackson, for this opportunity to say a couple of words on peace officer status. I appreciate this opportunity. The university, with your guidance, made a decision that acquiring a peace officer status would significantly increase the safety of the RPI community, staff, students, faculty. I think it's a great way to lessen the risk here on our campus. And I think that we're going to continue pursuing that status for the university. And we'll obviously continue to engage in additional dialogue with the community here at RPI. But the decision stands. We're going to continue pursuing the status. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think there's been a degree of misunderstanding about peace officer status. Peace officer status allows us to more easily share information, obtain information, tap into certain databases about things that could affect the university, not just local crime, but things having to do with homegrown violent extremists, different groups around where these things could form an existential threat to the university. And it is important to be able to freely share and collaborate. Now, the Troy Police does support what we do, but this would give a subset. It's not all of public safety, the status in order to be able to pursue certain things. So I would invite students who've had concerns and others to continue to dialogue with us to have greater clarity, and so we can have greater clarity relative to people's concerns. Before I close out, I thought I would just see and give any dean a chance to make a quick remark if there's anything they wish to say. Let me start with Shaker Garde. Anything, Shaker?
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. I just want to thank our faculty and staff for the tremendous transition that they have done to move online. I also appreciated all the information that we received through this town hall meeting mechanism. And I'll emphasize that the administration is working with the deans to ensure that we have great academic experience for our students, including teaching in March as well as in the fall.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lord Brenneman.
Well, thank you, Dr. Jackson. I will echo one thing that Shaker already said, and that is I'm extremely proud of the faculty in the School of Science and also the students and how we've managed to not only pivot but make plans for the summer and the fall in light of having a lot of information that hasn't come in yet. And so the faculty have been great. The planning process, working with you and with the cabinet and other task forces that are going on campus have been great. And I just say that the thing is represented by excellent teamwork. I really think that that's what's going to preserve and expand the Rensselaer quality education of the future.
Hey, Mary Simone? Dean Simone? Did Mary disappear? Okay.
No, I'm back. I'm back. I hope. Am I there?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I wanted to also extend a thank you to all the faculty, staff, and students who made this very rapid transition. I know that it has been stressful for many, but it's also produced some really outstanding student work. I want to thank you and Barbara for the transparency regarding our financial challenges. I think as we come together as one Rensselaer, it's important that we have a common understanding of what we're working toward in our shared suffering. And then also it was very exciting to hear from Dr. Lawrence about the very stringent safety measures that are being put in place for us to return to campus. So thank you.
Okay. Dr. Dean Douglas, Evan Douglas.
Dr. Jackson, thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. I think you've used the term in the past, sacrifice. We're certainly facing an existential risk throughout the country and the world, and higher education is challenged on the highest level. There's an enormous amount of effort, as shown today by the leadership at the highest level, with you at the helm, trying to identify and be proactive in the most creative way to anticipate how we will at some moment return back to some kind of normalcy. There will be compromises made, but we are a community. It's a resilient institution, and I do, as Dean of the School of Architecture, I want to thank the faculty, staff, and students. The architectural community is certainly familiar with digital platforms and virtual environments. This is intrinsically a part of who we are. So I think the transition to online learning has moved relatively smoothly. And as my colleagues have stated, there's been a tremendous amount of innovation. And we will work with the Institute leadership to figure out the best and most productive way to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Shanika Edosinghe. We can't hear you. I still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just turn on the mic. Thank you, Dr. Jackson. I want to thank you for holding this panel meeting and sharing the information with all of us. And I want to share the same commentaries of my fellow deans and say thank you for the excellent teamwork of the Landy faculty and the staff, and also for the students for their collaboration, and without which we would not be as successful we have been throughout this unprecedented semester. For many of us, it was the first time to be totally online, and we have learned quite a bit in this new mode of delivery. And as you correctly pointed out, Dr. Jackson, some of these things that we have learned are going to stay with us. We will innovate our delivery mechanisms in the years to come and months to come. And also, I want to thank the entire leadership of the Institute who have worked with us shoulder to shoulder, sharing the information and working towards more lasting solutions and being patient and looking at all dimensions of the solutions process. In particular, I want to thank the Provost, Dr. Prabhat Hajela, without whom we wouldn't have the success we have today. And thank you so much, and I will continue to work with the staff and the students and provide the leadership that the Institute needs at this moment in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith Young, Dr. Young.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jackson, for the opportunity to speak today. I want to thank you in particular, as well as the cabinet, for all the help and assistance that I've been given to help our faculty move online instruction. We're continuing to innovate. We're continuing to find new ways to collaborate. And I just think it's a testimony to the faculty and staff of the Institute for all the work that we're doing to continue to make this the best place for our students. And we definitely look forward to that continued transition during the summer and hopeful potential return in the fall. Thank you so much.
Stan Dunn, Dr. Dunn.
Well, thank you, Dr. Jackson, for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. I would only echo my colleagues to thank the leadership, the faculty, the staff for yeoman's effort in starting to see us through this very difficult time. But I did want to make a point, maybe 2 points. One is to reinforce what Prabhat has said, that we are committed to supporting our current graduate students. And Robert Hull and I have met in a similar forum with our graduate students twice now. And we will continue to meet with them to answer questions, to help them. But I know in our meeting this past week that some students had individual concerns about their particular situations, and I would encourage those students or others to come and see me and see how we might be able to help out each individual student. You know, it does take a village, and we have great leadership here, and we'll be able to help all of our students grow. So thank you again.
Thank you. Eric Krause, Dr. Krause.
Thank you, Madam President. The Hartford team and I are delighted to continue to share what we've learned delivering the highest quality digitally facilitated learning with our colleagues in Troy. And we look forward to this opportunity to support in however we can. Thank you, Madam President.
Okay, Deepak Dashith. Deepak, Dr.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. I wanted to thank you and to the research community for coming together in such a tough time. I want to assure that we'll continue to innovate and collaborate and prepare for the new research challenges in the human health spaces this crisis has presented to us. We've had some good efforts going forward, and we hope to play an important role in addressing the COVID-19 challenge. And also, I want to give a shout out to the research students. The graduate students have come together in a very interesting way in online collaboration, and they continue to learn and collaborate with each other while working remotely. Thank you for the opportunity to talk.
Thank you. Jim Hindler, Dr. Hindler.
So as many of you know, data, AI, and computation has been something we've been thinking a lot about on this campus. And this pandemic has absolutely shown how critical our ability to do predictive analytics, to use AI in molecular modeling, and again, I won't talk for hours about all the stuff happening on campus, except to say it's been wonderful to see how a technological university has been able to come together, talking also to the policy and social side. So Dr. Jackson, thank you for letting me say a few words, and thank you for letting me thank all of the faculty involved in the research activities of IDEA who really found ways to take what they were doing and turn it into things that will help us reopen this campus.
Thank you. Wei Su.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jackson, to give me the chance to speak a few words here. First of all, I would like to thank you, Dr. Jackson, and the leadership team to work very hard to give us the opportunity to keep running our research, ongoing research in CISO. And also, I would like to thank all the faculty members and the students who are working with us. They are very creative to come up with new ways of doing the cognitive immersive system research here. We are not only keep going with our ongoing research, but we are expanding our research to support online teaching. So we are developing online games as well as AI tutors to help the student. We are also working with our sense making and decision making support with IBM and companies to deal with the situations come up from the pandemic situation. So I think our research is strong, and I'm very excited to work with the creative and brave RPI faculty member and students.
Thank you. Johannes Goebbels, Professor Goebbels.
I'm here. So the Impact Building is really yearning for everyone to come back to campus. As you know, it's a beautiful building. It's built for being together and open one's mind with the art projects we are developing here, besides the research, like Wei just talked about the CISO research. And because we are experimental media, we are currently have been working on projects which are occupying or invading the virtual space with events which have been streamed, and like the curators were involved with 2 events where we actually had even more people than are currently attending this meeting to attend the artistic side. So we are working on developing plans how the physical distancing can actually lead us together again to share the experience, which I think everyone is yearning for, because in the end, we need the glue between us and to open our minds to be able to move forward.
Thank you. Lee McElroy.
Dr. Jackson, thank you for allowing me to say a couple words. I just want to say it's been a pleasure to work with our colleagues to make sure that whatever form we come on campus, the health and safety of our students are first, but also the top-notch global education that they're receiving to be successful. And it's just wonderful to see this group coming together in the best interest of the students and the campus and the faculty and the staff in order to be successful. It's very inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you. Travis Apgar.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. I would just reiterate a couple of things. First, I think it's just fantastic and was almost awe-inspiring to see the pivot that everybody was able to make when we had to switch from in-person to online. And credit to everybody who made that happen, the faculty, the staff, students, yourself, the other administrators and my colleagues. I would also want to reiterate congratulations to the class of 2020. They will be, in fact, a very unique class. We talk very often about the great classes, and maybe these will be the resilient class of 2020. We also look forward to having them back on campus when it is safe and celebrating with them. And then just last thing is, a very sincere thanks to all of those folks, including especially our student leaders, who continue to collaborate with us through this whole change. Through the pivot to online, to making sure the arch is in place this summer, and the conversations that they're participating in with us over the course of this summer as we prepare for the fall. We have some outgoing student leaders in both the union, in terms of our GM and our PU, and then some incoming new folks who were able to have a very successful student election. So congratulations to them, and we look forward to continuing those conversations. Thank you, Dr. Jackson.
Thank you. Craig Cook, we didn't have a chance to.
No, nothing to add other than to also add my congratulations to the graduating class, and really to all the students and faculty who adapted and got creative to make this work as well as it has worked. So thank you, Dr. Jackson.
Great, thank you. John Colton.
Let me add my thanks to everybody else for just a great set of colleagues here, and faculty, staff, and students that not only got the rest of the semester going, but continue to think about new ways to use this technology, even when sometimes, Dr. Jackson, it doesn't work as well as we'd like it to. This has been a great couple of hours to talk through some things. Just share a little tidbit that I actually found out yesterday during the Red Talk that we had with Professor Hendler and Professor Carruthers. A final project in Professor Carruthers' parallel processing course, the students had to choose a project, and 10 of his students chose to use AMOS and do COVID-19 research. And so you see the innovation in our community, particularly with our students. It's always rewarding and reminds us why we do what we do. So thank you.
Thank you. Richie is having a problem with her video and sound, but I will say Richie did a yeoman's job in helping us to sort through and group the questions so we could try to be as responsive as possible. So Richie, thank you for that. So we close out, we've talked a lot about the challenges, about the things we are trying to do, protocols, planning in an uncertain environment. But as Greg Easton said, he was taught if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So we always work against the scenario or a set of scenarios that we feel bracket what we may face. And so that when the inevitable comes, we at least have some ground to stand on. And is it the same model that everybody else might use? No. Is it a perfect model? Of course not. But it's not unlike doing research, where the answer isn't obvious from the beginning, and one starts down an investigational pathway, and you go where the science leads you. And before I make my closing remarks, I'll say that the science is helping us begin to understand COVID-19 much better than we did before. And there are signs of hope and progress. And so I want to have John Dordick speak before I close out about where things are. I call John my resident virologist, but he's the resident biological engineer, the resident biochemist, and as they say, all around good guy. So, John.
Thanks very much, Dr. Jackson. I guess the most important thing to keep in mind, and this is not just here at Rensselaer, but it's all throughout academia, industry, and government, is the exceptional speed by which we're accruing knowledge about this virus. Less than 4 months ago, none of us had heard about it. But very quickly, the genome of the virus, the RNA genome, had been sequenced. within a few weeks of that, the structure, that critical spike protein that actually binds to the receptor on the human cell was determined with tremendous, really a tremendous ability to understand exactly how that works. And then the collaborative efforts of researchers across the globe has been really unprecedented. The speed at which that has occurred is really mind-boggling. And that's not just faculty, it's students from all across the world looking to try to address the problems of COVID. Therapeutics are advancing extremely fast, in fact, faster than anything I've ever seen. Antivirals and the cocktails that would go with it. You could read up about that every few days. You see something a little bit different. Keep in mind that many of these things have been drugs or drugs that have been developed but not ever marketed that are beginning to come forward. And that allows us to really progress at lightning speed. And we've learned that the attack that the virus has across a wide range of the different organs in the body, which is really devastating, and the ability of the virus to push our own immune systems to go after the body has really been quite devastating for so many people. You know, we are very proud both of the people in my group and also with Bob Linhart's group, but also other researchers across the university and to colleagues at medical centers to have advanced ways that we might be able to attack the viral attack itself. And so that is quite exciting for us, but also humbling. And, you know, just keep in mind that the academic community, both here at Rensselaer, which of course includes our faculty, our students at all levels, and our staff are very much working selflessly and really with great passion to be able to address this problem. And in fact, we're confident that we're going to overcome this pandemic because of the ability of the scientists and the engineers, the humanists, and so forth coming together to figure out what's the best way forward. And a place like a university really brings all that together. And that's why places like Rensselaer will in fact succeed. And to the graduating class, let me just say that, you know, this is going to be your world that you're going to have to change to enable ways to avoid these kinds of problems in the future. So we're going to look to you to be able to do that. So thank you again, Dr. Jackson, for the time to speak a few words.
So I would like to say a few words for those who may be listening. We're in the class of 2020. And this is also part of my message to you and will be for the virtual graduation. You know, 100 years ago, a little more than that, a class graduated into another global pandemic, the Spanish flu. They also graduated into very difficult economic times and the First World War, which exacerbated that pandemic. But in the end, they persevered, and our country persevered, and the world came out of this. And we've learned a lot more, and there's a lot more knowledge that can and will be put to use, and Professor Dordick just mentioned a little of that. So it is always important to maintain hope and belief in what one is doing. And so some people have raised the question about whether where the university is going. Are we going to be more innovative? What have we learned from this? And our own governor, Governor Cuomo, you know, has asked his Forward New York task force to think about how do we build back better? Because, of course, New York State has been very hard hit by COVID-19, especially downstate. But if you really think about the fact that there were a number of Rensselaer graduates came through the 1918 and through 20 flu pandemic and the World War I. And they had a great education. This is a great technological university. And so one could ask, what have we learned from this experience? What are we learning? And that is, we know that we already have focused on the use of technology in pedagogical innovation, and by virtue of the adaptations we've had to make, we've learned even more with the use of digital platforms, as others have said, with virtual environments, with new pedagogical approaches that use gamification, immersion, and artificial intelligence to reach students in new ways. And we need to do more of that, and we will. We know that there are blended formats where it is not always in person or always online. And Rensselaer at Hartford has been a beta laboratory for us to test some of these. We have our own teaching and lab learning collaboratory. And so we're going to take what we've learned to be even more innovative in our pedagogy and in our research, to live up to the excellence of this university that it has always had. But we also will take it into efficiencies having to do with automation, the use of technology, the use of data analytics, the use of AI. And we will come out the better for it. I think we and the country are learning better systems relative to preserving health and safety of our citizens, even as we've learned about inequalities in access to health care. But in the end, we are all learning something, and we will be the better for it. And I believe that this pandemic will allow us to draw closer together as a community. And those, in the end, are the values that endure. So thank you for your attention this afternoon. Stay safe, be well, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Goodbye.